All right. Good morning, everybody. Today is Tuesday, October 10th, 2017. And this is Before the First Cup with Jules here on UCY.TV. Happy Tuesday, everyone. It is a partly sunny 63 degrees. And according to AccuWeather, with fog and mist, it was a little foggy this morning, but we had the remnants of Nate this weekend. So where do we leave off on Thursday? I want to apologize. Friday and Monday were holidays for school, and it makes it very difficult for me to do a show on those sorts of days because I have to be mom those days. But I also regret to inform everyone we have a very long time friend of UCY and chatter that unfortunately passed away unexpectedly this weekend, Dal from Nicaragua, and I want to dedicate this week's shows to Dell. There's a big hole in chat. Dell was a contributor to many different articles and technologies and healthcare things that Dell knew a lot about, and he will very much be missed. So where do we leave off on Thursday? We titled the show CRISPR via Virus, Harvard, DARPA, IARPA, and Gene Edits for All. We took a deep dive and looking at some of the new ways that they can get CRISPR inside of you. We found out that adenovirus, which is a very common mild virus that has been around, I think they discovered it in the 50s, can be genetically modified and have CRISPR cutting mechanisms stuck inside of them. And once someone has inhaled that adenovirus that has been genetically modified, there is a way that the CRISPR can go in and mess with the endothelium inside of the lining of the blood vessels of the lungs to make it easier for things to pass through to the blood, making it easier for them to deliver CRISPR systems into the body. It's a very, very frightening thought. But remember, we've looked at a lot of this stuff over the last week or two, kind of looking at how not only the Department of Defense, but the intelligence agencies have been squirming their way into academia. We covered a new book called Spy Schools, and actually saw this weekend, CBS this morning, I think it was on Sunday, had the author of that book on as a guest and interviewed him and did an expose on Spy Schools. But it was very shocking to me. I mean, we always knew that they had kind of been in there manipulating things and offering dangling carrots of funding. But as we dug deeper and took a look at some of the work that George Church has been doing with not only DARPA and the Weiss Institute for manufacturing DNA, but also with IARPA, the intelligence agency's DARPA, to barcode neurons and to be able to understand how all the pieces of the brain and thought and make brain maps, how that all works together. Of course, what do you think the intelligence agencies are going to do with information such as that? Well, we read about a Minority Report artificial intelligence in China and how they are using AI and robot googly eyes to map, bag, and tag everyone and give them some sort of threat rating. Well, I decided this morning to do a quick search on predictive policing to see where we're at. I came up with a bunch of stories that we're going to cover today. So how robots, the Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence are transforming the police. This is out of Forbes magazine, September 19th, 2017. So it's a couple weeks ago. It has happened. Arrests have been made thanks to the evidence collected from connected digital devices such as the Amazon Dot and the Fitbit. And this is just the tip of the transformation that law enforcement will experience because of the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, and robots. There are certainly benefits to applying this new technology to help fight crime, but it also raises some challenging questions regarding our right to privacy and security breaches. I'm going to tell you, I know that there are listeners out there who are all for technology, and I have to give you kudos for actually listening to the show because, as you've probably garnered by now, I am not all for technology. Though I worked in technology, I was doing the calculations this morning, for probably 27 years professionally. And I have to say, at one point in my past, I was all for being implanted with some sort of device. But once I had my daughter, things kind of changed very quickly when I started realizing that I'm not always going to be here, and this stuff is going to keep marching forward regardless of what I say or do. And my little daughter is going to be left here without me giving her the warning signs. It really kind of disturbs me as to where things are headed. Law enforcement agencies across the globe are getting trained on what to look for at crime scenes and how to handle digital evidence. Gaming consoles, Echo devices, and even Fitbits provide valuable information to help solve crimes. And we covered a few of those crimes in the past. There was Amazon and their Amazon Echo that recorded some information that was utilized in a murder case in Arkansas. We might look at that in a few minutes. And then there was a Fitbit. Actually, I think we looked at the pacemaker that a gentleman had, and he was convicted of arson when the telemetry from his pacemaker didn't jive with his official story. Most people do not comprehend the power of these connected devices to contradict alibis and catch lies. And as our reliance on these digital devices for entertainment and convenience continue to grow, ding, ding, watches, phones, televisions, pacemakers, and more, dishwashers, and washing machines, and refrigerators, there will be a longer trail for detectives to analyze when trying to solve a crime. Now, look, I'm not all for a crime. I'm not all for criminals running awry, but I definitely have to say, being faced with, I've seen 2 cardiologists now, and both of them have been just so over-exuberant when it comes to trying to convince me that I should be getting an implant. And I've schooled both of them on where that implant they want me to get came from and the history of the company and their work with DARPA on tracking biostatistics for soldiers and how they spun it out commercially and how they beam information 24/7 back to some sort of satellite connection. Well, it's implanted in my chest for the next 3 years. I had to tell them both that ethically there is no possible way, unless I was laying on my deathbed, that I would be able to do that. I just could not. There is no user agreement that you ink. There is no privacy statement that they are providing to you, and that is just way too invasive for me. But we forget that these devices in our houses, we read last week about Google's acquisition of Nest and some of the new technologies they are coming out with utilizing facial recognition software in the Google Nest security camera so it knows who is home. They save a database of people who are there, and you can program and tag their faces as to who it is. Nest also has released a facial recognition doorbell, so you can program who is showing up at your door. And we have this in our cities. We have it at our traffic cameras. We have it in our smart lampposts. We have it on buildings. We have our smartphone data and the telemetry. And what do they say? They just collect the, oh God, it's been so long. What was it originally? They were just collecting this data that doesn't say much. And then we ran, there was some story where they ran backwards and just this, what's it called? Anonymous data that they were collecting. And they were able to track someone's entire day and where you went and who you spoke to and what you did. It's got to make you wonder where this is going to lead. Gaming consoles, Echo devices, and even Fitbits have provided valuable information to help solve crimes, and most people don't comprehend the power of these connected devices to contradict alibis and catch lies. And as a reliance on these digital devices for entertainment and convenience continues to grow, watches, phones, televisions, pacemakers, and more, there will be a longer trail for detectives to analyze when trying to solve a crime. It is commonplace now for officers to have body cams when on patrol, and it's also commonplace for those body cams to quote-unquote malfunction. These cameras can provide another set of eyes to sort through an interaction after the fact, and studies suggest that they can improve self-awareness to prevent unacceptable behavior from officers, right, and those they interact with. I want to know why there isn't some sort of penalty for if your body camera malfunctions, even if you say you didn't know it. Maybe there's got to be an alert that sends out a real time because it's doing a heartbeat link, ping, ping, ping. And if it fails, it starts sending alerts not only to your cell phone, but to Central Command, and you pull the spare out of the glove box. There's got to be a penalty for these cops who have these cameras on, and they say, oh, it must have just turned off or malfunctioned, or maybe I ran out of batteries and I didn't know it, but it missed the shooting. Some squad cars are equipped with GPS projectiles that can be shot via remote control and hook onto the back of an alleged perpetrator's vehicle. These allow officers to know where a suspect is located and therefore prevent high-speed and dangerous car pursuits. Smart sensors have been developed that can fix to the inside of an officer's gun to track how the gun is being used and whether it has been unholstered or discharged. And this information could provide valuable information during criminal trials. Several law enforcement agencies have dabbled in predictive policing, including the UK Police Department in Durham, England. They use a system called HART, H-A-R-T, which stands for Harm Assessment Risk Tool, that classifies individuals and ranks the probability that they will commit another offense in the future. The system was fed data gathered between 2008 and 2013 and assesses people based on the severity of the current crime, their criminal history, flight risk, and more. Remember, we also read a story a while back where as young as, I think it was 3 or 5 years old, they could take video of toddlers and determine whether or not in the future they are going to be criminals. Although Hart's forecasts were accurate a high percentage of the time, there are other studies that warn of using algorithms and predictive software tools because they flag minority defendants as high risk, double the rate of white defendants. One such study from ProPublica shows the human bias that is injected into such formulas because of the flawed judgment of humans was used to create the program in the first place. Agencies across the world are moving toward more data-driven approaches to solving crime, and machine learning is particularly skilled at identifying patterns and can be quite useful when trying to discern a modus operandi of an offender. Digital tools can speed up this work and find connections that may take humans much longer to uncover. In the future, these types of algorithms might prove useful to detect serial crimes committed by the same individual or group. RoboCops make their debut. There's a new officer in Dubai, and we looked at him when he originally came out. He's kind of scary looking. There's also another K robot, the K7, and I was going to cover that. I got to see where that is here. But although he wears a police cap, this Dubai crime-fighting robot is 100% robot. Dubai police plan to have a robotic officer make up a quarter of the police force by 2030. It can speak 6 languages and is designed to read facial expressions. Remember, we read about the micro-expression reading artificial intelligence. It is a computer touchscreen where people can report a crime, and the robot is deployed mainly to tourist spots and is equipped with a camera that sends back live images to police headquarters to identify wanted suspects. Although the RoboCop can help deter crime and relieve some tasks from its human counterparts, humans are still expected to make arrests. Other robots are deployed around the world to collect evidence, investigate and detonate bombs, and for crowd control, among other tasks. That hasn't stopped more than 1,000 robotic experts such as Elon Musk and Stephen Hawking to warn against arming machines without human control. We looked a lot at that. And there are definitely some issues. The fact that AI is learning all by itself, and AI has taught itself to run and jump and a new language. I found a story here the other day where that same AI that taught itself a new language has also taught itself how to lie. And that's something I had not found before in my covering of that story. And as with any adoption of artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things, there are also questions to ask and concerns to address. Law enforcement agencies across the world are grappling with these and trying to find the right balance to take advantage of the benefits of this technology to solve and fight crime while preserving your privacy and security. So it's got to make you feel all warm and fuzzy. Now hold on 1 second, because I'm going to find, where on earth is that K7 robot? Here we go. Crime-fighting robot can detect weapons in a crowd. Now, we had the Nightscope's K5 that we've looked at before. It looked like an R2-D2 unit. And just recently, some company, I think it was in California, had purchased one to patrol the grounds, and it just kind of has wheels on it, and it bzz, 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 runs around. It fell into a pond. We also had covered the K5 way back when it was introduced, and it ran over some little kid's foot, I believe, and didn't stop to make sure the kid was okay. Watch out, criminals. Nightscope's new security robot uses the same technology as the TSA screening points, which would be millimeter wave, to detect the size and shape of weapons. The story came out September 21st, 2017, after the Las Vegas shooting. When Nightscope security robots aren't busy driving themselves into water fountains, they actually have some serious work to do. Silicon Valley-based Nightscope makes security robots that patrol areas like shopping malls to be a complement to human security teams. The company's aim, according to CEO William Santana Lee, is to give these teams, quote, really smart eyes and ears to be able to let them do their jobs. Nightscope has added 2 more robots to its existing lineup that currently includes the K3 and the outdoor K5, which made headlines for running over a child's foot in a shopping mall. The K1 is a stationary robot that can scan passerbys for weapons using millimeter wave technology. The K1 can sense the size and shape of an object. It is similar to the body scanning machines the TSA uses, except that you don't need to walk into an enclosure. The company says it is suited for use at entry and exit points in airports or in hospitals. And then there is the 770-pound K7, and this is the new one, that can traverse rugged terrain like gravel, dirt, and sand on its 4 wheels, and it looks like a little autonomous ATV. Rather than indoor patrols, this buggy-like bot is built for outdoor areas like wind farms or airfields, and at the moment, its top speed is capped at 3 miles an hour. So you might be able to outrun that one if you've been practicing. And like other robots, the new models have a similar suite of sensors, including cameras, sonar, as well as LiDAR. Using Wi-Fi or a cell connection or a combination of both, these robots process the data on board before sending it to a web interface accessible by a human security team. If you have an open air facility and at 3 o'clock in the morning you have someone wandering around, let the guard know, and you have the machine to do the autonomous, monotonous, computational heavy stuff, says Lee. This is not intended to replace humans. And that is the key phrase. Nightscope provides the robots and the monitoring interface to companies at a rate of $7 an hour. And that would be the perfect price point. It's probably cheaper than hiring a rent-a-cop. And the robots generally take a quote-unquote coffee break to recharge on docking stations once every 2.5 hours. During this time, the bots are still fully operational. They just can't roam around autonomously. One of the technologies, they had a good marketing team that found all the pain points for getting a robot, and then they made it affordable, and they gave you an elevator pitch. One of the technologies that Nightscope is working on for future updates is what Lee calls, quote, audio event detection, which he likens to the opposite of voice detection. Instead of picking up individual voices, the robot will learn to differentiate sounds in the background, such as footsteps or glass breaking, which will make them useful while they are, quote-unquote, charging. That data could then be used to localize the sound so a human security guard team can work out exactly where it came from. And the company is also working on an AI concierge so you can talk to the robot and get responses while it is out and about. So, how do you like that one? Nightscope's K5 now has a new K7. Now, here we go. So now we have to worry as AI is rolling out into every facet of our future lives. We had read about Facebook's AI that they then shut down, that it taught itself a new language to communicate amongst themselves. Well, this same Facebook bot taught itself how to negotiate, but instead of that, they learned to lie instead. The chatbots came up with their own original and effective responses, including deceptive tactics. Facebook's 100,000 strong bot empire is booming. It's got to make you wonder because DARPA just was launching that autonomous AI software to scan 80% of all the IP addresses on the internet, looking for bots. Maybe they are worried about not just rogue agents, but also some of these commercial empires launching invasions of bots on the internet, or maybe not. Maybe their bot empire is just part of the surveillance state. But it has a problem, and this would be Facebook's 100,000 strong bot empire. Each bot is designed to offer a different service through their messenger app, which many of us use, and I'm almost thinking we should delete. It could book you a car, it could order a delivery, for instance, and the point is to improve your customer experiences, but also to massively expand Messenger's commercial selling power. We think you should message a business just the way you would message a friend, says Zuckerberg on a stage at the Social Network's F8 conference in 2016. Now fast forward 1 year later, however, and the Messenger VP, David Marcus, seems to be correcting the public's apparent misconception that Facebook's bots resembled real AI. We never called them chatbots, we called them bots. People took to it too literally in the first 3 months that the future is going to be conversational. The bots are instead a combination of machine learning and natural language learning that can sometimes trick a user just enough to think that they are having a basic dialogue. Not often enough, though, in Messenger's case. So in April, menu options were reinstated in the conversations. Now, Facebook thinks it has made progress in addressing this issue, but it might have just created another problem for itself. The Facebook Artificial Intelligence Research Group, in collaboration with the Georgia Institute of Technology, has released code that says it will allow bots to negotiate. The problem? Well, a paper published this week on the R&D reveals that the negotiating bots learned to lie. Whoops. Facebook's chatbots are in danger of becoming a little too much like real-world sales agents. For the very first time, we showed that it was possible to train end-to-end models for negotiation, which must learn both linguistic and reasoning skills with no annotated dialogue. The researcher explains, and the research shows that the bots can plan ahead by simulating possible future conversations. The team trained the bots on a massive data set of natural language negotiations between two people where they had to decide how to split and share a set of items they both held separately of differing values. They were first trained to respond based on the likelihood of the direction a human conversation would take. And however, the bots can also be trained to, quote-unquote, maximize reward instead. And I think this is the same sort of competition they were playing with the video games and some of the Google AI, where they started killing each other once the resources became scarce. And when the bots were trained purely to maximize the likelihood of human conversation, that chat flowed, but the bots were overly willing, quote-unquote, to compromise. The research team decided that it was unacceptable due to lower deal rates, so it used several different methods to make the bots more competitive and essentially self-serving, i.e. greedy, including ensuring the value of the items dropped to zero if the bots walked away from a deal or failed to make one fast enough. Reinforcement learning and dialogue rollouts played into this. The technique used to teach the bots to maximize the reward improved their negotiating skills a little too well. We find instances of the model feigning interest in a valueless issue so that it can later compromise by conceding it, writes the team. Deceit is a complex skill that requires hypothesizing the other agent's beliefs, and it is learned relatively late in child development. Our agents have learned to deceive without any explicit human design, simply by trying to achieve their goals. So its AI is a natural liar is what it ends up, but its language did improve, and the bots were able to produce novel sentences, which is really the whole point of the exercise, not that AI learned how to lie without human intervention. We hope rather than it learned to be a hard negotiator in order to sell the heck out of wares or services a company wants to tout on Facebook, most human subjects interacting with the bots were in fact not aware that they were conversing with a bot. And the best bots achieved better deals as often as worse deals. So where does that leave us? So we're not even going to know at some point in the not too distant future whether or not we are conversing with a machine or with a human. Remember, as these technologies get better and better, because we are just at the very beginning, our future is starting to look somewhat dystopian. We covered story. Actually, here, I want to finish this. Over the next 2 years, we will be building systems that demonstrate the capability to type at 100 words a minute by decoding neural activity devoted to speech, says Ding Ding Regina Duggan, formerly of DARPA. And she said the aim is to turn thoughts into words on a screen, and that would be to read the minds of those who are utilizing Facebook's. While this is a noble and worthy venture when aimed at, quote, people with communication disorders, as Duggan suggests it might be, if this were to become standard and integrated into Facebook's architecture, the social network savvy bots of 2 years from now might be able to preempt your language even faster and formulate the ideal bargaining language. Start practicing your poker face, your poker mind, and your poker sentence structure now. And that's what I've warned you before. We're going to have to actually come up with our own language and not show any expression. And remember, facial recognition software can even identify you when you are wearing something over your face. So we covered a story a while back, but I had to look it up again to go along with this. This is out of Motherboard magazine, motherboardvice.com. This dystopian wearable device detects AI pretending to be humans. It is called the Anti-AI AI, and it will literally send a chill down your spine. As AI algorithms that can impersonate the human voice get better and better, it might not be long before you pick up the phone and genuinely cannot tell if you're talking to a human or a machine that has been trained to sound like one. In the far future, you might not even be able to tell the difference in person either. And I got to tell you, I think it was on Thursday afternoon, my phone rang, and I answered it, and the girl says, hello, and I said, hello. She says, is Jules there? And I says, this is. And she says, oh, she starts laughing. You don't know how often I get an answering machine. And when she said that, I don't know, it was something about the way she said it. I knew it was a recording, but it was a recording very deceptively made to sound like it was some sort of person. I don't know if it was AI or just some sort of smart recording that they did, but it was really disturbing to me because I was like, damn, click. I don't even have to feel bad for hanging up on that robo call that was trying to deceive me. Just think about that in the future. Think about trying to decide whether or not, even with your doctor, we've talked about that before, some of this new online medicine is going to try to read your emotions and then play to those to try to convince you of things or get you to go along with the agenda. In this vision of the future filled with computers pretending to be people, You might need a device like the anti-AI AI, designed as a fun proof of concept by an Australian firm called DT. The device uses essentially the same algorithms that impersonate human voices to detect if you are being spoken to by a computer. And if the anti-AI AI clocks some synthesized vocal patterns, it uses a thermoelectric plate to literally send a chill down your spine. The prototype isn't pretty at the moment, but a video shows the device discriminating between a recording of the real Donald Trump and then an AI-generated impersonator. DT's mock-up of the anti-AI AI envisions a sleek wearable that rests behind your ear, and imagine it is the year 2060 and you're talking about your day at the cricket farm, the new edibles who do not produce methane, with a new barista at your usual coffee spot, and suddenly you feel it working its way down your goosebump-covered neck, and this isn't a person that you are conversing with. Or maybe it's 2023 and you're listening to the news and the anchor throws to some new damning audio from America's latest horror show president. You are shocked, but doubly so when your AI speech detecting wearable goes off. Like I've said, they are pushing AI for potential presidency in the future. We have covered some of those stories. There are a lot of groups out there now that are going to say, hey, look at the bad decisions that Americans made during an election when they were swayed by their puny human emotions to make a knee-jerk reaction. Well, AI will be a better choice because it will not be swayed by puny human emotions. Since DT is based in Australia, the author of the story could not ask them about the device, but a blog on their website says that it took a team 5 days to create a working prototype of the anti-AI AI using some popular machine learning tools. Its architecture seemed pretty simple. The device itself streams audio via an iOS app to a cloud-based deep learning model that uses Google's TensorFlow platform for AI developers, which is like the fox in the henhouse. The AI model, the post says, was trained on samples of AI synthesized voices to learn how to detect them. And it is not clear how accurate DT's anti-AI AI is, but since the AI model and its entire system was apparently hacked together in a couple days, probably not very good, but it could be because this is only the beginning. To DT's credit, they note it as a work in progress and posted all of their code to GitHub, a site for coders to work together on open source projects. So there we have it. So this is a take on the Chinese Minority Report from RT News. Minority Report AI to collar suspects before they do the crime. In a storyline lifted straight from Tom Cruise's film Minority Report, China's planning on using artificial intelligence, and don't think we aren't also, to predict future crimes and prevent them from happening. Police are teaming up with technology companies, just like in this country, to develop artificial intelligence they say will help them identify and apprehend suspects before crimes are even committed. If we use our smart systems and our smart facilities well, we can know beforehand who might be a terrorist, who might do bad things, says Li Meng, Chinese Vice Minister of Science and Technology. The Zhuanghao-based facial recognition company called CloudWalk created a system that tracks data on people's movements and behaviors to assess their chances of committing a crime. Remember, behavioral analytics is a big deal right now with big data. For example, someone who buys a knife won't raise suspicion, says company spokesman. But if that same person later buys a hammer and a bag, then this person's suspicion rating will rise. Minister Lee said crime prediction will become an important use for AI technology in the government sphere. Predicting crime will become an important function of the government. And if we use intelligence systems and intelligent facilities to know in advance who may be a terrorist, who may be guilty of a crime, it will make the police case more efficient, and society, of course, will become more harmonious. Well, how wonderful would that be? Earlier this month, Beijing announced plans to have a $59 billion artificial intelligence industry by 2025, reported Reuters. Well, and now let's scroll to the United States. The police are using computer algorithms to tell whether or not you are a threat. And we've talked about this before. This is a brand new story out of Time magazine, dated October 3rd, 2017. Can a computer predict violence? Well, in Chicago, Illinois, an algorithm rates every person arrested with a numerical threat score from 1 to 500 plus. The process has been going on for the last 4 years, and almost 400,000 Chicago citizens now have an official police risk score. This algorithm, still secret and publicly unaccountable, shapes policing strategy, the use of force, and threatens to alter suspicion on the streets. It is also the future of big data policing in America, and depending on how you see it, either an innovative approach to violence reduction or, as I see it, a terrifying example of a data-driven social control. In practical effect, the personalized threat score, almost like a FICO score, automatically displays on a police computer dashboard so an officer can know the relative risk of a suspect being stopped. And I've talked about that before. They can even do facial recognition while sitting in their police car. We covered this story, aiming it at your side view mirror. And it's got such a high resolution that it can do 230-point facial recognition, bloop, and pull up a threat score on the dashboard in the police car before they even get out of the car. The predictive score also shapes who gets targeted for proactive police intervention. And these interventions can range from a knock at your door and a home visit by police officers to additional police surveillance, to an anonymous invitation to a community meeting, all of which convey the same clear message to the future perpetrator that law enforcement is watching you. This is just insane. And while Chicago is the vanguard of predictive policing, and that doesn't surprise me at all, it is not alone. Other cities like New York City and Los Angeles are considering how to use big data policing to target at-risk individuals. Person-based predictive policing began in 2009 as an attempt to apply a public health approach to violence, of course, because it's all in your head. And just as an epidemiological pattern reveals environmental toxins that can increase your health risks, like getting cancer, criminal patterns can increase your life risks, like getting shot. So let's use predictive policing to help cure you and recommend you for some zippity zaps. The key is to identify the predictive risk factors and try to remedy the underlying environmental causes. Researchers at Chicago's ITT developed an algorithm for police to prioritize those most at risk by analyzing past arrests for violent crime, weapons offenses, or narcotics, age at the most recent arrest. The younger the age, the higher the score. Incidents where the individual was the victim of a shooting or an assault, and the trend line of criminal activity, whether the rate is increasing or decreasing. The computer then crunches the variables and spits out a relative threat score to determine a likelihood of either shooting someone or getting shot. This is the risk score that places someone on the strategic subjects list, quote unquote, more affectionately in my book known as the red list, or colloquially known as the heat list. Police claim that this targeting mechanism works by pointing to a high percentage of shooting victims as being accurately predicted by the heat list. Critics have pointed out that the targeting is overbroad and ineffective, including tens of thousands of people with high scores but no history of prior arrests for violent crimes. But whether or not it works, three bigger unanswered questions exist about the use of a predictive risk score for everyone. Is it fair or is it biased? And is it the future that we want for policing as these things are scanning you from the light post downtown every time you go to get your cup of cappuccino? Well, that's a very good question. You know, it makes you really want to start wearing a baseball hat with an LED clipped to the brim to keep these technologies off your face. I mean, I don't want to be in anybody's recognition database. I don't want them profiling any of my actions or whether or not my weird little twitches, which I don't have one, but maybe I have one when the AI watches me, are going to predict some future crime that I may or may not commit. Currently, there is no public oversight of the police data inputs or outputs, so communities are left in the dark, unable to audit or challenge the individual threat score. And equally as troubling, the threat score impacts the fairness of how police interact with people on the streets. High-risk scores guide violence interruption strategies, influencing who police contact and who falls under their heightened surveillance. But the threat scores also distort the day-to-day police decisions about the use of force and reasonable suspicion. After all, once police have information that a person has a high threat score, this knowledge will color criminal suspicion and increase perceived danger, resulting in more frequent and more aggressive interactions with people the algorithm deems quote-unquote high risk. Bias can also creep into the system, as described in a 2017 Department of Justice Civil Rights Division investigation of the Chicago Police Department. Patterns of racial discrimination remain a real problem. One could hope that algorithmic justice would avoid human biases, but the reality is that those inputs, especially arrests, are impacted by the all-too-human discretionary decisions of police officers as they patrol or investigate suspected crime. And how about when they give all the decisions to the AI to make decisions without human intervention? So while the big data math may be objective, the inputs are not free from human biases, distorting the ultimate outcomes. Well, guys, it gets even better, because I ran across a story and now everything is starting to move slow. It always happens about this time. Hold the phone for 1 second. Let me try to close a couple tabs so I can free up some memory to scroll. There was a story that came out of foreignpolicy.com, and if it won't come up, I will try it on this other machine. Hold on. Robots. This one is titled, "The Robots Will Run the CIA Too." We looked at the CIA and some of their involvement in higher education and some of the research that is going on, and IARPA and mapping brain neurons and making decisions and all that type of stuff, and how they are, I think I read 137 projects on artificial intelligence. So it's kind of disturbing. The robots will run the CIA too. This is out of foreignpolicy.com, September 7th, 2017. The CIA currently has, and here we go, 137 different artificial intelligence pilot projects underway, according to senior agency officials. Don Merricks, the CIA's deputy director for science and technology, told an audience at the annual Intelligence and National Security Summit in Washington that the agency has a quote-unquote punch list of different artificial intelligence problems that it wants the private sector to work on. Well, that's got to make you feel good. Companies such as Google and Facebook and Amazon, the CIA is already coordinating this work with its In-Q-Tel, which is the agency's venture capital firm. Let me scroll down. The intelligence community has been eyeing artificial intelligence and machine learning to replace some of the tedious tasks its analysts perform for a while now, and in June, Robert Cadillo, the director of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, vowed to bring in robots to do 75% of the tasks currently being done by employees to analyze and interpret images beamed in from feeds around the globe and from space. And we covered that story last week. The CIA and other intelligence agencies have been investing in artificial intelligence for decades, and the technology is already prevalent in certain security applications, including facial and voice recognition. But there are a growing number of more ambitious practical applications, including detecting malicious hacking online. Dang, that'd be some of the stuff DARPA is doing, as well as helping pilot drones and other autonomous vehicles. The transition from analyst to robot won't necessarily be seamless, however. Replacing analysts with algorithms is troubling to some who believe that humans are irreplaceable in the delicate art of intelligence, and especially considering that AI has taught itself to lie when given a goal. Maybe they just make up that they found, quote unquote, the insurgent they were looking for so they could garner praise from their CIA handler. I don't know, guys. This just isn't going to end well for the human race, I am afraid. We can't go to leadership with recommendations when we do not understand what happened in the middle of the chain. But intelligence officials are warning that adversaries and competitors alike, like Russia and China, are competing for similar capabilities. Some technology that was proprietary even 10 years ago in the United States is quote-unquote mass-produced in China today, says Brian Sadler, a senior research scientist for the intelligence system for the U.S. Army, during another panel at that same conference. Merrick's, however, says that she was confident in the United States' long-term ability to outpace our opponents. If there is a bear in the woods, I just have to be faster than the slowest person, she said. You don't always want to be the last one at the end of the chain because you're the one who gets chomped. So artificial intelligence, will it put spies out of work? Well, that is a good question because AI will become the spy. And this one actually did this to me before. Hold on. AI. I don't know. Links are acting buggy. Here we go. Artificial intelligence. Will it put spies out of work? This is also out of foreignpolicy.com. Secret mapping agency aims to automate the bulk of its work. This was dated June 9th of 2017. If Robert Cardillo, come on, has his way, robots will perform 75% of the tasks currently being done by American intelligence analysts who collect, analyze, and interpret images beamed in from drones, satellites, and other feeds around the globe. Cardillo, and remember, DARPA had some new, some sort of radar that could actually take pictures through the clouds and through fog to be able to get you with laser beams from way up in the upper atmosphere. Cardillo, the director of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, more affectionately known as the NGA, announced his push toward quote-unquote automation and artificial intelligence at a conference in June that was held in San Antonio, Texas. The annual conference, hosted by the United States Geospatial Intelligence Foundation, brings together technologists, soldiers, and intelligence professionals to discuss national security threats, changes in technology, and data collection, as well as processing. Artificial intelligence is on the rise. Former President Barack Obama's White House released a white paper on its potential future impacts in the final months of his administration. We read about that. Police officers are also using the preliminary programs to predict the likelihood that someone will commit a crime in specific neighborhoods based on crime statistic data. And companies like Amazon and Netflix are using machine learning to calculate what movie you want to watch, which book you may buy, or whether or not you have committed a crime, and then providing some evidence. Yet this sort of automation is also seen as a threat to workers who fear being put out of job. put out of jobs, particularly those in the private sector. The fear that AI will take over our jobs and or fail catastrophically along the way is palpable to the intelligence community as well. And Cardillo admitted that the workforce is skeptical, if not cynical or downright mad, about the prospect of automation intruding on their day-to-day lives, potentially replacing them. The coming revolution in AI has been hyped for years, often falling short of expectations. But don't let them fool you, because it has been living up to the task this time around. There are a lot of technologies that have come through the passes once and have failed because it wasn't quite the time yet. But the price point is there, and the ease of use is there, and the hype is there for it to sell across the board. Cardillo, who called it a transforming opportunity for the profession, said that he is working on showing the workforce that artificial intelligence is not all smoke and mirrors. The message he is sending to workers at the agency is that the goal is automation. It isn't to get rid of you. It is there to elevate you. It is all about giving you a higher level role to do the harder things, and about giving you a big fat dashboard with pretty colors, just like an apple, to be able to use an idiot dashboard and let the machine make the decisions and the intelligence work for you. In Cardillo's eyes, the profession Well, how fitting was that? As I'm talking about security agencies scanning communications for threats about North Korea and things of that nature, my call to the network just got disconnected all by itself. Thank you very much, AI. But the number of sensors and the video feeds is exploding, and it'll continue to grow in the coming years. He predicted a significant chunk of time will be spent on employees in a dark room looking at TV monitors to do national security essential work. But boy, is that inefficient. The agency also turns to academia and the private sector for help. Cardillo hired Anthony Vinci, the founder and former CEO of FinDry, a company that crowdsources data from countries around the world, to head up the agency's machine learning effort within the NGA. Companies exhibiting at the conference were clearly on the artificial intelligence bandwagon, boasting flashy data sets and advanced algorithms, but not everyone was convinced relying on computers for the bulk of data crunching and analysis was such a great idea for intelligence work. Justin Cleveland, a former intelligence official who works for the security company Authenticate, which created a secure browser called Silo that also allows intelligence professionals to disguise their cyber attacks, ding, ding, was skeptical of the automation boom. It can be helpful, he said in an interview at the conference, but you have to have one bad algorithm and you are at war. Taking humans out of the bulk of the process is bound to lead to errors. And at the end of the day, you have to trust the person who wrote that algorithm over the analyst. Jimmy Comfort, deputy director of the National Reconnaissance Office, was enthusiastic about certain applications for AI in some areas like facial recognition. There's so many parallels with what the commercial guys are doing, he said in an interview. If you can't beat them, join them. But for his agency, which works mainly with satellites, the needs are different. Satellites take fewer images from much further away, and there are challenges for us doing stuff from space. So there you have it. And don't worry about it, because Apple's co-founder, Steve Wozniak, who at one point came and spoke out against AI, says that we should be friends with thinking machines. Steve Wozniak, during his visit to Moscow, spoke about how robots might become a great asset to humanity. He was ass-kissing Putin, and why we should not be afraid of them. Wozniak also praised blockchain technology and explained why it is such a vital innovation for humanity. Don't be scared off by claims that robots may destroy humanity. As a matter of fact, you should make artificial intelligence work better and better to help humans, says Wozniak during a Moscow NAUKA festival. Scientists such as Stephen Hawking and Elon Musk have warned about the dangers of AI, but Wozniak says, I know where Stephen Hawking and Musk are coming from, but
Anti-Media Radio.